Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to June's LinkedIn live events. My name is Didier Lemire. I'm the founder and director of Fixon Media Group. And today we're going to be looking at a topic around about how we can actually move people through video. How can we actually get them to take the action that we want them to take as a company? So we're looking at what makes video content actually move people rather than just fill a feed. And it's something that a lot of brands tend to struggle with. They have the message they want to communicate. They need to get that to their customers, to their potential customers, but they can't do it. And the reason they can't do it is because they can't actually move people. We're going to look at why is video content forgettable in the first place? Even the high quality stuff, because you can put tons of production value into a video, but it can still be forgettable by viewers, by customers. And why is that? It's because it lacks connection, as you can see there. That's what we have to break down today. What makes connection through video? So there's two outcomes that I want you to come away with today. The first is I want to help marketers shift from the content that they're currently producing, which is just filling a feed, and we want to transition that to creating content that actually moves people, that makes them take action, that gets them to do what you want them to do as a company. And then the second key takeaway from today, the second key outcome, is to help you understand how emotional engagement can lead to long-term growth. So that long-term growth, that can look different for different types of businesses. We work predominantly with sport, tourism, education. So for those three businesses, looking at long-term growth being memberships, an increase in sales, increase in visitors, probably day spend if you're looking at a certain tourism destination, those kind of aspects. That's that long-term growth that we're looking to increase over time. So that's those two outcomes that I'd like to come with today after our little short 30-minute event this morning. So today's discussion, we're looking at three key talking points. The first being what separates forgettable video content versus content that actually connects. We'll then be looking at the impact of using consumer psychology within your video marketing to take advantage of that. Now, what is consumer psychology? We'll look into that. And there's four key areas that we work in predominantly with our video content that we focus on to really bring that consumer psychology to life and really take advantage of that for our clients in their video marketing. And then finally, we'll be looking at how can you actually structure and create story-driven content within your video content. And that's really where that connection comes from. That's how you make it memorable. That's how you make people remember your brand at the end of the day. And so we'll explore our four pillars of brand films to discuss that and to explain that concept. So who am I? Oh, I'm, as I mentioned, Didier Lemire. Run Fixon Media Group. So we're a video production company based in Melbourne, and we've worked with a number of customers, clients, businesses across sport, tourism, and education, doing their video marketing and doing just this, making them memorable, making people remember their brand, connect with their brand, and making sure that their video content isn't forgettable, but it in fact moves people and helps them take the action that the customer needs to take. So let's kickstart it with what separates forgettable versus moving content. So forgettable content. There's really 5 key areas that we'll look at here. And there are only 4 mentioned there, but there's one more to come and talk about as well. So first off, forgettable content, it prioritizes visuals over meaning. So there's a lot of focus from the video production company or from the marketing team around, let's just make this look as aesthetic as possible. Make it look on brand, make sure everything's perfect. And look, there is definitely a time and place for making sure things stay on brand, but we don't want to do that at the expense of a message or at the expense of connection or making things memorable. Forgettable content also focuses on quantity rather than quality. Now, both are very important, especially the quality side of things. We want to make sure that is as high as possible, and we want to get as high as possible with our quality and have a high enough quantity as well, a high enough output going out. So there's a very fine balance between where that needs to be. But forgettable content tends to focus more so on the quantity going out rather than how much quality is going out alongside that quantity. Forgettable content also speaks at people instead of with them. And that's another thing that we see a lot. You definitely see it in more of a B2B context, but even in B2C, there is still a lot of companies out there that speak to their customers rather than with them. And so if we want to increase that connection, we want to increase the relationships between customers and brand and vice versa, it's really important that as opposed to speaking to the person, you're actually engaging with them and having a bit more of a conversation. And that's really, really important. And then finally, the fourth that we've got here is that it lacks a bit of a narrative or emotional hook, forgettable content. What do I mean by this? Any real memorable piece of video content has a story attached to it. Whether it be a 30-second video, a 10-second video, 10-minute video, doesn't matter. The best and most memorable pieces have a narrative. They have a storyline. And within all great stories is an emotional hook. And that's what keeps people engaged. And so forgettable content, what we're looking at there is how can we actually make people get engaged with that there. So those are the 4 key areas there. One other bit I want to just touch on briefly with forgettable content, what makes up forgettable content, is that there's no actual connection point within it. And we touched on a little bit there about the speaking to people versus with people and having a bit more of a focus on the story and the meaning and the communication rather than just the visuals. But amongst all of that is how do you actually hook them in and connect with them on certain areas? Because you can do that through visuals, you can do that through emotion, but there's another aspect to it, and that's core values and beliefs. And a lot of forgettable content doesn't actually show the core values and the beliefs of a company. And we'll touch on why that's so important in just a moment as well. So content that moves people, on the other hand. So what do I actually mean by saying move people? So to move people, I would define as being able to engage with people on a deeply emotional level, make them feel something, and help them to understand what action needs to be taken. And that's really, really important, is as a business, you have your message that you need to communicate. If you communicate that to a potential customer, a current customer, and they don't know what to do with it, then you haven't done your job. So we need to make sure that they can understand what action needs to be taken. So content that moves people has 4 clear characteristics. 1, it has a clear audience understanding. 2, it doesn't rely on trends. So they're not jumping between different trends. They've got a clear, defined strategy behind them as to why they're being produced in the first place. They center on truth and values, just as I touched on before there with core values. We'll go into that a lot deeper later on today as well. And they tell stories that resonate. They're not just telling a story for the sake of telling a story. They tell a story that has a meaning behind it, that has a strategy behind it as to why it's being spoken about. And in turn, that can help relate and help people resonate a lot more as well. One example I want to just touch on with content that moves people is a recent project that we did with SportEng. So they're a field of play design company. We created a social proof brand film, and we wanted to do it from both the customer's perspective, which is their customer's perspective, as well as them as the business. So business approach, customer approach, and bring them together into the one film. And the reason behind that was to help them move people, help them move their customers, right? Engage with them on a deeper and a more emotional level. So we centered on the truth of what their project was. We subtly talked about the values that were beneath all of that and what drives them as a company. Through that, we're telling a story that resonated. Perfect. So that ticks those 2 boxes. We didn't rely on doing any sort of trendy kind of video. So we stay clear of that. But we gave the audience a clear understanding of what it is they do, what their actual impact is, how that made their customers feel, because we get the customer's perspective as well. And then wrapped up in all of that is their core values and beliefs as well. And so that was a piece that not just looks amazing visually, but it has such a clear meaning and understanding beneath all of that as to how it actually can help their own customers, how it can move them. And at the end of the day, there's a call to action in there, and the customer watching it knows exactly what they need to do. So it's a fantastic piece, touching on all those 4 points there. All right, the next part. This is my favorite. I love looking at the psychology of consumers, and so we're going to be touching on using consumer psychology to your advantage in video. Goes back to that question I just asked before. Why are you using video in the first place? It's fantastic to create a piece of video. I love doing that. My favorite thing to do. But why is it being done in the first place? There has to be a purpose behind it. Because when there's no purpose behind it, you're doing things willy-nilly. You don't have any strategy behind it. There's no clear reasoning as to why you're doing it. But not only why are you using video, who are you trying to target? What do you want them to do? How do you need to say it to them? How are they going to be able to best receive that message? There's so much more beneath this one question of why you're using video in the first place. Because video content, it's not just there to look good. It actually has to tell an audience, influence an audience into doing something that you want them to do, to take action. That is the most important part. So that's why understanding a few of these core psychological drivers in consumers is so critical. So let's look at those 4 that we focus on at Fixon Media. The first is color theory. Now, color theory has been one of the things I've looked at for a very, very, very long time. When I first started to look at launching the business, I was thinking about, I have to design a logo, and everyone goes through this. And I probably spent more time on it than I probably should have. But I was fixated on the idea of color theory and what colors mean and how they can influence people's minds subconsciously. And so I was looking through very much a similar graphic to what's on the screen now and thinking to myself, all right, how do I want people to perceive us? Because I wanted us to come into the world of video and video production, video marketing, and appear like we are an established player, as if we've been here for years, that we've got a large customer base and lots of trust. And obviously you don't have that when you start out, but I wanted people to look at us and think about that. So I looked at blue and different types of blue. And the reason for that is because blue, as you can see there on the graphic there, displays trust. It displays confidence, power, loyalty, success, purpose. These are all traits that I wanted to have associated with our brand over time. And so the logo, albeit a very small piece of that, I wanted to make sure contributed to that area. Now, color theory, it doesn't just stop at logos or wall colors or anything like that, because colors, they're all around us. And in video in particular, there are tons and tons of colors on display at any given time, thousands, if not millions. And each one of those carries a meaning. And you can see behind me here, I've got our blue on a light. Fantastic. That just brings that a little bit more. But again, subconsciously, you as a viewer are picking that up and you're thinking to yourself, there's a bit of confidence in there. There's a bit of trust. There's a bit of loyalty, perhaps. These are things that you're thinking about, but you're not realizing you're thinking about it. Bringing all of that in. Also, I've got a very, very bright space here, so it's a little bit more of the oranges and the yellows. So that brings a bit more of a vibrancy to it. This is all tactical. I've thought about this when setting up what this set looks like, because everything carries meaning. And so when we're producing videos for companies, again, doesn't matter if it's short form or if it's long form, we are always considering what does the overall space look like in terms of colors, not just from an aesthetics perspective, which does hold a place, and branding still does hold a place. Because if branding didn't hold a place, I wouldn't put a blue light in the background there. Right? It still has to link in somehow. But you don't want it to be the overall focus. And that's what a lot of brands do, especially those that are not as experienced when it comes to video marketing. The branding comes first for them. But we want to take the branding out of it, talk about the strategy and the why and the reasons behind it, then bring the branding back in, then bring the aesthetics back in after looking at all of that. So you want to be, with color theory, you want to consider those emotional cues, and you want to choose colors based on how you want people to feel in both a conscious and a subconscious manner. Next up is emotions first, story second. And what I mean by this is, again, very much alongside that idea of let's focus on the meaning before we touch on anything else. So we want to focus on the emotional response first. And the reason for that is because emotions always come before comprehension. And so let's lean into that through video. Instead of focusing on what the story is, let's focus on how we need to make people feel. And what a lot of marketing teams do, I've seen it. They come up with this amazing creative idea for a video. Fantastic. I love creativity, all right? And they've got this whole story derived from this idea. But then when we dive into it and we say, okay, those key questions, why are we doing it? How do we need to target people? Why are we targeting those specific people, etc.? Then it kind of unravels. And you realize that creative, that storyline isn't actually going to be able to deliver those emotions that we need them to. Because at the end of watching the video, we need the customers to feel exactly how we want them to, for them to take the action that we want them to take. And so if we focus on the story first, we're limited as to how emotions can be delivered. Whereas if we focus on the emotions first and we settle those in, then the amount of creative is unlimited, because you can create millions of ideas based on a certain emotion that you want to feel. But if you're doing it the other way around, you're very much restricted around how you can make people feel, because you're set in stone on this one storyline, this one creative idea. So emotions first, story second, always. Creating relatable situations. This is to do with storytelling again, and the narrative and the plot line that you create in a video, doesn't matter if it's short or long, needs to be relatable. You want viewers to look at that and think to themselves, hey, that's me. I've been there. I know that feeling, right? We want them to relate to the video. And the more that a viewer can relate to a story, then the more connected they will be to your brand, because they see your brand in their head, in their memories. They say, hey, I've been there before. I can relate to that. And the more you can relate, the more you can connect. So that's a really important thing to look at as well. And then finally, core values and beliefs. And this is, again, one of my favorite areas, and it's part of our 4-pillar framework. So we'll touch on that again in a moment's time. But one thing that's really, really important to remember is that the most ideal customer for your business is going to be one that holds the same core values and beliefs as your brand. Plain and simple. Because you think about it in a friendship term, if we take it out of the world business for a second. The people that you're friends with, you hold similar core values and beliefs to. Now, you won't hold everything the same, and that's fine, but there's a degree that you do. And it's no different with customers and brands and businesses. There are certain core values and beliefs that we hold as individuals that if we see them in a brand, we are much, much more aligned to that brand versus another brand whose values and beliefs we don't quite match. And so showcasing your values and beliefs in your video content subtly, and that's key, and we'll touch on that in a moment as to why. Showcasing them in your video content subtly is incredibly important, because it gives the viewer a chance to connect and gets them to align themselves to your brand. And the more they can align themselves to your brand, the more loyal they're going to be. And over time, it's going to increase that long-term growth, that longevity as a customer. And that, as we touched on at the start, is one of the outcomes that we want to achieve through video, is to increase that long-term growth potential. So when you do these 4 things as part of consumer psychology and taking advantage of these 4 things, when you align, you're able to create a memorable video. When you bring the color and the emotion, the relatability and the values together, you create a memorable video. Because without this, your video content isn't very memorable. It's forgettable, right? And that's what we're wanting to move away from. We want to make memorable video content. And when you align these 4 areas and you do it through a structure, that as we'll touch on in just a moment, that's how you create memorable videos. So section 3, the final section for today, how to structure story-driven video content. Now, we use a 4-pillar framework for all of our video content at Fixon Media, both for us as an individual business and for businesses that we work with as clients to produce their video content. So I'm going to walk you through that exact 4-step framework today. The first pillar of the brand film framework is the true product and service. So what is that? It's what is it that you really sell as a company? And we don't want to stay on the surface level, because that's what a lot of businesses do. They stay on that surface level. They say, we're an airline. We take people from point A to point B. No. That's surface level. We want to go really, really deep. And the deeper you can go, the more impactful your storyline will be. The more impactful your storyline is, the more likely it is relatable. The more relatable it is, the greater the connection. Are you kind of seeing how all this interconnects now? It all comes together. So what is it that you really sell? We want to go a lot deeper. So if we're using that airline as an example, on the surface level, take people from point A to point B. If we go a lot deeper, and we can keep going deeper, but let's just go a couple steps deeper for the sake of an example. At that deeper level, they don't just take people from point A to point B. They connect people no matter the distance, no matter the circumstance. They will find a way to get you where you need to be when you need to be there. Right? I've only taken that a couple of steps down, and we could probably go even deeper. We probably could. But you can already see there, just understanding that true product and service at a little bit deeper of a level, as opposed to staying on that surface level, makes that business appear so much more impactful. Right? Consider that. Business A, we take people from point A to point B. Okay, fair enough. That's fine. Let's look at business B. Right? We make sure that no matter the distance, no matter the circumstance, we will connect you to where you need to be when you need to be there. Wow, that feels so much more impactful, doesn't it? A to B, huge difference in those two companies, just because we've taken that step a little bit deeper. And that's the key. So the second step of our framework here is the impacts. And there's going to be more than one. That's why it's plural. And you can look at all the different features and the benefits of your product and service, and you can come up with tens of impacts from each one of those. So what impacts does your true product or service have on your customers? You want to identify them as many as possible. But the key here is to focus on one impact per video. And the reason for that is because we don't want to dilute our message too much. Let's go back to the core problem. You as a business want to share your message to your customer. If you've got too many messages that you need to share, the customer's going to get overwhelmed. They're not going to be able to understand what it is that you want them to do, what you want them to understand. So we need to take it back a bit and be very, very straightforward. Here's one story with one message, one thing that you have to understand. And we do that by just focusing on one impact. So if we use that airline as an example, what's the possible impact? Well, by being able to get you to where you need to be, when you need to be there, no matter the distance, no matter the circumstance, how can that possibly impact you? Well, maybe you need to get from Melbourne to Sydney for a relative's funeral. Perfect. You can attend the funeral. That's one impact. Let's say you've been stuck overseas because of the COVID lockdowns and you need to get back to your home nation so that you're not being stuck on the streets or paying for hotels and relying on government support in the foreign country. Perfect. Now you're back at your home country. Fantastic impact. Lovely. Let's say you need to get to your home country because your relative's having a birthday party. Well, perfect. That can make you get there. That's another impact. That's just 3. We could go on and do thousands of these. But each one of those can build the foundation of a storyline, of a plot line, of a narrative. And that's the idea. Identify those impacts and they're going to be that foundational storyline structure for you alongside the rest of these 4 pillars. The third pillar is emotions. We've highlighted already just how important it is to focus on emotions and put those first before the storyline. We want to take our viewer on an emotional journey. You think about any film that you've watched. And when I'm talking about film here, I'm talking about an actual movie, Hollywood movie, right? They've got an emotional journey, an emotional roller coaster. They don't just stay at the one area for the entire time because that's boring. right? Imagine you're watching a 90-minute movie and there's no emotional journey, right? And you're just stuck there at the same all the time. You'd be pretty bored. So when we're creating brand films, 90-second duration, 2-minute duration, whatever it is, or short form video content, which is 30 seconds long, we still want to have that emotional journey, right? We still want that emotional roller coaster. And we are able to do that by identifying two sets of emotions. So the first ones are the before emotions. So these are typically going to be what your customer feels before they become a customer. So where are they right now? What pain are they feeling right now? In a generalized format, that's going to be guilt, anger, sadness, sorrow, loneliness. But then let's look at the flip side of that. How are they feeling after they've become a customer, after they've experienced your impact, they've experienced your true product or service, they've experienced the results that you can get them as a company? How are they feeling? They're probably feeling happy. They're joyful. They probably have freedom. Maybe they're feeling love. Maybe they're feeling gratitude. These are those happier, more positive emotions. And so we want to take a viewer from those before emotions, the sadness and the sorrow, and we want to take them to the other side in our video content. There goes the microphone. We want to take them to the other side with those after, the happiness and the joy. Show them what it looks like. Show them what they can be feeling. And that's the key. Show them what they can be feeling, because that creates FOMO. And if we create FOMO, then we've just hooked that viewer in so deep. And the final fourth pillar of our brand film framework are the core values and beliefs of your company. As I touched on at the start, the most ideal customer is one that holds the same or similar core values and beliefs to your brand. And so we want to showcase our core values and our beliefs as a company through our video content. But we want to do that very, very subtly. And the reason for that is if we are showcasing our values and beliefs to our customers, but then we put our brand front and center, what it often appears as is that as a brand, we're wanting to be the face of attention, and we're using this core value and belief as a carrier to be the face of attention, right? That can appear pretty poor in the eyes of consumers. So the key here is you need to showcase those core values and beliefs, but do so in a way that doesn't appear like your brand is being front and center in everything. One of the brands I recommend you to go have a look at as to how they do this absolutely brilliantly is Dove. And they've done raising awareness brand videos for many decades now. What they do a great job of is showcasing their message, showcasing their core values and beliefs, but doing so in a way where their brand takes a back step, the story does its job in showcasing those values and beliefs, and as a result, it's a positive reflection on the brand. Whereas the alternative is you showcase core values and beliefs, but your brand is front and center, and that just appears a little bit condescending at times and makes you look like you want all the attention, which we don't want to ensure, obviously. So that's those four core values. Four pillars of our brand film framework. That final one being the core values and beliefs. So the biggest takeaway from today that I would like you to just remember is that the best looking videos mean absolutely nothing if no one feels anything as a result of watching it. And more importantly, they mean absolutely nothing if no one takes action. Because that's what we want people to do after viewing a video. We want them to take action. We want them to do what we want them to do. And why do we want them to do that? Because we want to create that long-term growth over time. The increase in memberships, the increase in sales, the increase in visitors, the increase in day spend, etc. And if we can achieve that, then as a business, we've done our job. We've been able to share our message to our customers and in turn get them to do what we want them to do. So, before creating a video, don't just ask, is this a good video? Instead, ask three key questions. Is this video going to make people feel something? is this video content going to clearly communicate our message to our customers? And 3, is this video content going to make people take the action that we want them to take? And if you can tick all 3 of those boxes, then chances are your video is going to be a very, very well impacted piece. It's going to be very effective, and it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. So thank you for your time this morning in watching and listening. There will be a recording published on YouTube and Spotify of this episode, so I encourage you to go back and listen and watch it just to refresh your mind. The next live event will be on Tuesday, July 8th at the same time, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be touching on why random videos don't work and what to do instead. Because another key area that a lot of marketers struggle with is they're producing all this random video content, but nothing's happening. And the reason for that is because there's no clear alignment, there's no clear strategy. And so we'll touch on a little bit around why A, random videos don't work, and B, how we can, instead of creating random video content, make more strategic video content and bring alignment together. So thank you again. It's been fantastic to watch and learn through this morning. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And until the 8th of July, thank you, and speak with you very soon. Cheers.